Did you know there's only one single weapon in this game that focuses on a totally forgotten, for now at least, source of damage? That weapon is none other than the gauntlets 21D, which are craftable, and they focus on increasing dodge counter damage by 50% when dodging. This weapon was what actually influenced me into making this video and got me thinking. Characters have niches in what they excel in damage-wise, like Shang Liao being a liberation damage dealer, Chang Li being mostly skill damage, or Encore being kinda spread out but focusing mostly on basic attacks. That being said, for characters like Chang Li or Shang Liao, do you want or need to level your basic attacks if your damage doesn't focus there? I think you should, or at least consider partially leveling after main damage sources. Let me explain. Basic attacks are obviously a part of everyone's kit, duh, but most of the time you're going to need to do some work in order to get your forte or even your ultimate up if your damage comes from that. That means you may need to utilize basic attacks to fill your bar or to get concerto energy. Take for example Shang Liao. Most of his damage is from his liberation. Keep in mind too, his role is as a stacking main DPS dealer that relies on you using basic attacks to get your forte up and eventually your ultimate. Most people say to prioritize his liberation and forte first, with basics, skill, and intro falling into the don't level category. My take is that since he is a main damage dealer, utilizes his basic attacks often, and more importantly will be on field majority of the time with high solo or duo potential, you ought to level up his basics. This goes for any long on-field main attacker. Chang Li is skill damage but needs basic attacks to eventually get to her core passive attack if you're not privy to swap cancelling or are again doing solo or duo runs. Calcaro, if you don't quick swap him, will be on field for long periods of time dishing out damage and will incorporate weaving in basic attacks with his skill. But there's one more reason, and that's the dodge counter, which is not talked about often in terms of damage. While you won't be getting big screenshot numbers, your main damage dealers will often be counter-attacking as well, so why not squeeze out that damage? In fact, the dodge counters have higher multipliers and are easier to execute than getting to later basic attacks to match an equivalent multiplier. That means more upfront damage just from dodge counters. It's also great too since the multipliers are highest on DPSs, so it's not like building a DPS arena that's kinda niche, you know? This is something that you will use in every fight and get benefits from, since it all ties into the role of long on-field main damage dealers. Personally, once I'm rolling in more materials, I think I'll end up leveling up some of my damage dealer's basics. But maybe I'm late to the party on this, what do you think? These gauntlets are really odd since there's nothing else in the game that places such a specific emphasis on dodge counters. I can imagine maybe in the future we'll get an Aikido-inspired gauntlet user all focused around huge dodge counters at some point. I can only imagine some of the cinematic stuff people could pull off. Do you normally max everything or do you only level what's needed most?